The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm very distracted by my water bottle. I'm getting rid of it now. In any case, it's that kind of a morning. We have started a new format at Autism Live, and we're sort of running to catch up with ourselves. But we hope that you guys are grooving on this, that we're coming to you Monday through Friday from 10 to 11. It's been very exciting so far. We've had a pretty big week here, and today's no exception, because on today's show we have the amazing, one of my favorite people on the planet, Anita Lesko. And she is a wonderful self-advocate, an author, and a woman who has an amazing story to tell. She's a great speaker, and she has a brand new book out called Becoming an Autism Success Story, because that's exactly what she is. And I want her to tell her story, but just to let you know that she does amazing things on a regular basis. And so we're thrilled that we're going to have her for a very special extended segment with her a little bit later on today. But I wanted to let you know that we're going to be live here for the next hour, talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. We welcome everyone in this big, beautiful rainbow of a community, whether you are a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, or of course, an individual who's on the autism spectrum yourself. We hope that you will come here and find some information and inspiration that will help propel you towards the things that get it done for you, whatever that is. We know that there is hope, and we know that there is progress, and that it is not one size fits all. So we hope you will take what works for you, and we hope that you will participate. So Traven has started to show you some of the different ways that you can connect here with us at the show, some of the different ways that you can view the show, and it's free on all these platforms, but also some of the ways that you can connect and have your question, comment, concern addressed. Our homepage, is autism-live.com. And when you go there, there's a lot of different things there, because we've changed our website, we updated our website. And I think, although initially it can be very overwhelming, once you sort of find the things that you like on the page, then I think you'll be able to find so much more of that inspiration and information than you could before. Two things that I want to point out on that website: if you want to watch when we're live, when you go to the website, when we are live, it says live at the top of the page, and there's a little red dot. Now, in some of your servers, it will automatically open up, and you'll see that, it'll say we're live, and it'll open up the live show. Some of them you actually have to click on it. I don't know why, but I don't understand so many things about computers these days. But whichever works for you. At the bottom of the page, there's a word that says chat, and that's the place that if you want to use our live feature, all you do is push that button. It opens up a box. You have more letters that you can use than you could before, so you can make it a little bit longer. Now, I do like to remind you that if that chat box isn't getting it done for you, there are other ways that you can connect with us. As we've shown you, you can connect and ask your question or comment on Facebook. And we do check in live on Facebook. You can also do that on YouTube. I will tell you that YouTube's a little bit harder, because once the live show is over, your comments go away. So even if I don't get to your comment on the Facebook, I try to respond after the show, after we're live, because I'm I can do I can't even walk and chew gum at the same time. I sometimes can look and address things that you guys say in real time, but if I get into it in an interview, you've noticed that sometimes I fail to attend to what you guys are saying, but I will comment later on Facebook. That's YouTube, it goes away. So just keep that in mind. We're not ignoring you. It literally goes away. But if you ever find that all of those formats don't work for you at all and you have a longer thing that you want to address to me, you can always email me at s.penrod@autism-live.com. So s.penrod@autism-live.com, and you can write as much as you need to there. And that is always a good way to get a hold of me. All right, on Thursdays, we still are going to be doing the Jargon of the Day, because why wouldn't we? So Jargon of the Day is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to give you an actual definition, and whenever possible, I like to make fun of the actual definition, and then we give you a working definition. And the whole point of this is so that you can connect to whatever this term means, and hopefully it'll save you time and money. And/or money, right? That would all be good, right? So today's term, as odd as it may seem, apparently we've never done this term before. And so we've done echoics before, but that's very different from echolalia. And this is a term that you are going to hear very often, especially if you have a young child on the autism spectrum. So Traven, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual definition. Echolalia, the involuntary repetition, echoing of a word or phrase just spoken by another person. Okay. Now that's not the worst definition in the world, right? We sort of can get our eyes around that. But I got to be honest with you, as we were looking this up and discussing this, I didn't realize involuntary makes it different, because there are times, well, we'll talk about this in a second. Let's go ahead and go to our working definition. So working definition, just to take it down, repeating words or phrases said by someone else. Because sometimes our kids will engage in echolalia and we call it scripting, because it's not something that somebody just said, it's movie talk is what we sometimes call it. It's something from a Disney movie, right? That is just repeated. That they say something in the movie and our kids repeat that. But the thing that I want to say is that where I got a little bit tripped up in looking at this is that the definition says involuntary and repetitive. And we certainly see that in kids, right? We'll see them say something that somebody else has said. So, you know, mom says, do you want juice? And the child says, juice, 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 right? And sometimes they just say it once, twice, whatever. But then they'll get into a little thing sometimes where they'll just say it over and over and over again. Or they'll pick a phrase from a movie and they'll repeat it over and over and over again. And for a long time, I think we've all looked at that as being, oh, it's just, you know, it's just one of those things. It's just this involuntary, repetitive thing. But in recent years, parents have started reporting that they notice some of them. In fact, there was a whole documentary about this by Ron Susskind and his child, that sometimes it's not necessarily what we thought was echolalia isn't, because it is involuntary. That in the case of his son would say things that were from Disney movies. And so the movie would be playing, he would repeat it, and then they would hear him repeat it later on, you know, when the movie wasn't playing. And I guess maybe that's the thing that makes that not echolalia. But what they discovered is that he didn't have the way to make words for himself, so he was borrowing the words from the movie, but that they actually were in context. So, you know, he'd see it in Aladdin, and he got the phrase, a diamond in the rough. And I don't know if he understood what that phrase meant, but he understood the emotion and the context of the movie, so that when something happened to his brother and his brother was upset and crying, he started saying diamond in the rough, because it's how he felt about his brother. And it did have context. It was communication. It wasn't just repeating. So I just want to caution you, you know, true echolalia is the definition, that it's involuntary and it's repetitive and it's repeating what somebody else has said. So it's not our own words, it's the parroting of other words. But just be careful, because everything we think is echolalia may not be. And that's a very interesting way of looking at things, right? In any case, we always have a question of the day for you. Our question today, in this middle of April Autism Awareness Month, we're making you wait for it. What makes you want to throw a tantrum? You know, I always find it funny because we decide these questions in advance, and then they always are exactly what's going on with me, because I want to throw a tantrum today. I just have to be honest that I just want to throw a tantrum. And, you know, it's nothing that I need to share here, but something happened this morning that just, you know, tore my ticket in my personal life. So, but it just, you know how sometimes you get what we call in our family fatutzed? You get fatutzed because something happens and then it colors everything that comes after. I get angry when people are literal, when they just, it's like, well, I do this. And so you can call, you know, I'm just going to use the example of your insurance company, and you can say to the person on the phone, well, I need to, you know, be able to do this. And they say, well, you know, we do this. Yes, I know, but I'm asking you, can we do this? Well, we do this, right? And that, like, people get into this mode where they're not thinking anymore, where they're just spitting information out and not taking into consideration that they're talking to people. That makes me crazy. And I find myself sometimes saying to people, I'm sorry, am I talking to a recorded line? And they'll go, what? No. Oh, because I'm not feeling a human being here. Like, can we just talk person to person? Can we figure this out? Well, we only do this. Yes, I know you told me that. But is there anything else you have in your arsenal? Is there somebody else I can talk to? Well, we only do this, and they're going to tell you we only do this. And what you find is that you're talking to somebody who just has blinders on and isn't connecting to their humanity. And then when you go to somebody else, you find somebody in the company who's got a pulse. I like people with a pulse. I like people who are listening and people who can think outside the box. And because we are not one size fits all in any arena, are we? So anyway, that's what makes me throw a tantrum. And of course, my husband will tell you that I'm one of those people. I'm an adult, but I have been known to throw a tantrum. You know, in the last 6 years, there is one time when, and I've told it before on the show, that I went to pick out shoes with my husband and my son, and my husband hates me telling this story, but we went to pick out shoes, and my husband was busy looking at shoes and doing something. My son didn't really want to be picking out shoes and wasn't really helping, and I really needed him to get shoes that day. That was my agenda. And we were in the, you know, one of those big sporting goods place where they pump the music in so loud that you can't hear and think. And there's a lot of bending over. And my son is pretending, you know, this is when he was a lot younger, and he was just not into it. So he's like looking at his phone while I'm trying to put a shoe on his foot, like, hello? And I was saying, I need for you to help to my son. And he was just checked out. And I had called my husband over a couple of times and said, could you help me? And he would come over, but then he'd go back to looking at a shoe and he wasn't there. And I just felt like no one was listening to me, and including the guy. I would say, you know, do you have this in this size? And he was like, I'll be with you in a minute. And he wasn't. And I had asked him to turn the music down, and I was just on sensory overload, and nobody was listening to me. So I laid down in the middle of the floor. I just laid down on the floor. And my husband was like, what's going on? Are you okay? And I was like, I'm laying here until somebody listens to me because I'm done. And he was like, oh my God, get up. And he's don't do this. And I was like, nope, I'm laying here until it becomes about my agenda. And if you think about that, you know, I mean, it's horrible. I'm an adult, and there are many things I could have done. I could have walked out of the store. I could have said, you know what, I'm done with you guys. I could have used my words. But I was at a point, sensory-wise, where I really couldn't. I didn't have that skill set in that moment. So adult that I am, I laid down on the floor. I didn't kick my legs and scream or anything, but you know what? If they had continued to not listen to me, I guarantee you we were 4 minutes away from that. Not even 4 minutes, right? So what makes you want to throw a tantrum? And let's let's talk about why. You know, for me, there was a sensory element. There was a total lack of control. There was all this stuff that was happening, and none of it was about what we were supposed to be doing. And we were there to get something done. Imagine our kids, because so for some of them, the vocalization of, hey, could you help me, is not even an option unless we give them an iPad or something else. But for some of them, they haven't even learned how to do that. So when there's a sensory component, and when you're not in control of what's happening, and you have an agenda, and we all have an agenda all the time, what do you want to do? You want to throw a tantrum. So I think everybody wants to throw a tantrum at some point. I think because I'm a sensory person, I wonder sometimes if I, could get a sensory processing disorder diagnosis, because I have a hard time sensory, and man, it makes me not be able to self-regulate. I struggle a little bit with that. So I feel for when I see a kid who's in a sensory situation and starting to go, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I recognize that, you poor thing, let's get you out of this, right? But what makes you want to throw a tantrum? What are the components for you? Because if we can understand it in ourselves, and if we can start to work on it, and I do work on self-regulation for myself, which makes me more compassionate about working on self-regulation with other people, because I know it's not easy. Right? It requires having to stop your own train that's going, right? But right in, what makes you want a tantrum? Let's get it all up and out today. All right. In any case, and then the topic of the week this week, and this already has proved to be great fodder for discussion, frustration, and honestly, I'd like for us to think in our heads, frustration with an equal sign. What does frustration equal? Frustration equals progress. Hold on a second. Take a breath. Think about that for a second. Because what is frustration? Frustration is when you've gotten to the point where you're 100% in the mindset of, this isn't what I want. That's what frustration is. You're like, this thing is really upsetting me, and it's not the way I want it. So what happens? You change something, and then something else changes, and then we get to progress. I've come to look at frustration in a different way, and it's my son really who's been teaching me, because I shared that many years ago, he was watching a video with me of a mom who was crying, watching her son cry during ABA therapy. Because that happens. Let's be honest, that sometimes our kids get frustrated. And a lot of parents want to stop when the child gets frustrated. And a lot of people tell them, don't have them do that. That's frustrating. And you don't want the child to be frustrated. But think about that, because when we first learn how to walk, we get to frustration, right? And it's frustrating to watch a child be frustrated learning to walk, right? But we don't say, no, that's it, forget it. This is too hard. Let's stop letting them learn how to walk. And why is that? Because we know that there is this thing of frustration, and then they will get to the other side, and then they will know how to walk for the rest of their lives. And I watched my son go through frustration with things like learning how to be able to talk and say what he wanted to say. And it was frustrating. And I watched other people stop. And I'm not going to lie to you, there were times that I wanted to go, enough. Like, just leave him be. But we didn't, and thank goodness we didn't, because he got to the other side of the frustration. And then years later, as we were looking at this videotape of this mom crying because her child was crying, he said to me, did you used to cry when I was doing therapy? And I said, yes, I used to sit outside the door when you were crying, and my heart would bleed, and I didn't know whether to stop. And he said to me, Mom, I was just frustrated, and nobody ever dies from frustration. And that is sort of my mantra now when I get frustrated. I think to myself, right, nobody ever died from frustration, but people had things change because of frustration. So if you're frustrated right now, I just want to ask you to take a breath, figure out what it is that you've decided no longer works anymore. Thank the frustration for getting you there and figure out what thing you want to change first. Don't change everything all at once, but what thing do you want to change to get to the next thing? What thing do you want to stop doing? What thing do you want to start doing? Because that's what moves the dial on the frustration, and that's when you get to the progress. And that's a good thing. So frustration equals progress. Yeah, the space between the frustration and the progress is not easy. But you know, let's be honest. Getting to things that we want aren't always easy, right? But we don't have to be overwhelmed by the frustration. It's just a sign that this way no longer works. All right, so we've got this big show for you. Our very special guest today is going to be the fabulous Anita Lesko. I was going to say Ms. Anita Lesko. I don't know if she goes by Ms. because she's a very happily married woman. We've had her and her husband on before. We had them on for Valentine's Day, I think a year and a half ago. And I'm telling you, we all almost got diabetes because it was just the sweetest thing ever seen. And we're thrilled for her that she is so happily married. Anita, if you don't know, is one half of the all autistic wedding that was done at the Autism and Love conference. I think it's like, we'll have to ask her how many years she's been married. But what a wonderful, wonderful event. And Anita's got a new book out. It's called Becoming an Autism Success Story. She's going to be here with us in just a few minutes. There it is. And it is available, I think, as of yesterday. So you need to get your copy and get it now. In any case, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with Anita. Stick with us.
Hey, I'm Candace Cameron Bray.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Potty training is different for every child. A child could come in with absolutely, no control over their bladder, and as long as that's not a medical issue, then we can certainly approach it behaviorally and give them the tools they need to be successful, just like any other skill that we would teach.
Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
For some of our kids takes, just a couple days. And then for other kids, it can take months and months and months. And then when you're looking at complete independence, it can take years.
Hey, you have to go pee-pee?
There's a lot of different ways to tell if a child is ready. We look for a couple different things. Probably the most important is parents saying, I need this to happen, I'm ready. Second is, a child showing interest in the bathroom, and some of it is simply age. It's time to go ahead and work on this.
What are you doing? Pooping. You're pooping?
You first start with teaching the child what they need to do on the toilet. The basic thing we want is for them to drink as much liquid as possible. It's inevitable that if you drink a bunch of liquid, you're gonna pee.
Help. No, I can't help you pee. Help. I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
Ultimately, what we want is that, the child, as soon as they're put on the toilet, they urinate. So that's step one. Step two is usually working through the amount of time that they're off of the toilet and making sure that they're not having accidents during the time that they're off. So this is kind of the bladder control stage of things.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time. We can come play after. Hurry.
What we hope happens in this time is that the kids will learn how to initiate going to the bathroom on their own. This is oftentimes the hardest part of potty training, is because they get so used to somebody telling them when they need to go that they're not really recognizing the signs just in their own body of when they need to go.
Uh-oh, he wet himself.
Uh-oh. Big wet?
Was it a lot? We can reset to half an hour now.
The biggest thing for parents is not to give up. The other big tip, and I think pitfall that a lot of parents fall into, is putting their children back into pull-ups or diapers, especially if they're starting to have accidents. And this is probably the worst thing that you can do. They need to recognize that feeling of fullness in their bladder and take themselves to the bathroom, or tell an adult that they need to go to the bathroom.
What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, Jack. Big prayer for your pee-pee.
Big prayer for pee-pee.
Woo! Yay! Good job. What a big boy. High five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five.
Welcome back to Autism Live. As I mentioned earlier today, our next guest is one of my favorite people. We always love an opportunity to have Anita Lesko with us on the show. She's joining us from a different place right now. Well, first of all, let's welcome her. Anita, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
I love your hat. You always have the best hats. It's wonderful. And so, Anita, tell us where in the world you are. It's like, where's Waldo, but where's Anita?
Okay, so right now I'm in Troy, Michigan, which is just like a suburb of Detroit, because tomorrow I'm the keynote speaker at the Metro Parent Magazine Autism event, which I'm very excited and can hardly wait for that for tomorrow. So anybody who's listening, who's in this area, come out and join us tomorrow.
And so
it's at Troy, Marriott.
I'm sorry, where is it again?
At the, it's called the Marriott Troy.
Okay. And so I don't know if you even know the answer to this question, but do you know, is it still possible for people to get tickets so that they can come and hear you speak?
That I'm not sure of. I don't know that.
Okay. Well, knowing you, it's probably sold out or close to being sold out, but maybe you can get standing room only, folks. But that's a thing not to be missed, to see Anita. And you were mentioning that you're there in the hotel and your husband is with you and you have your kitty with you as well, right?
Yep, that's correct. And also, I just want to mention this evening from 6:30 to 8 p.m., I'm doing a book signing at the Barnes & Noble in Rochester Hills, Michigan.
Girl, look at you. You're the busiest person I know. Because in addition to all this and writing all the books that you're putting out and having this very happy married life and traveling and speaking, you find time to do all these other things and to give back to the autism community. You're amazing. But let's, go ahead.
I was going to say, don't forget I spend about, 40 hours a week in the operating room doing anesthesia. So I actually use up my my vacation time, which fortunately I get 6 weeks of paid time off every year. So I use up my vacation time to do all these traveling all around the country speaking.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm able to do all that.
Plus, in addition to a full-time job, which is just amazing, 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 amazing. But I love the fact that you have 6-week paid vacation. Is that because you've been working your job so many years?
No, it's the nature of my job as a nurse anesthetist. That's it's a professional job. That's how much vacation. Even if brand new graduates who just start, they get 6 weeks paid vacation as well per year to start off with. That's how much vacation you get.
I'm in the wrong business. In any case, Anita, you've got this new book out. Now, you've written a bunch of different books. What number is this book?
This is actually number 4.
Wonderful. And we're showing the book jacket right now. And of course, notably, forward by Dr. Tony Atwood, and then put it back up there for just a second, Traven, and a special note by Dr. Temple Grandin. But I wanted to look at, you've got those icons across the book. Talk to us about why those icons, Anita.
Well, each one of those symbolizes different aspect of my life. We have the puzzle piece, obviously, for the autism. There's a picture of a fighter jet. That's because I spent 7 years as one of my special interests. I actually became an internationally published military aviation photojournalist because my big goal was to get a flight in a fighter jet, which I ended up getting that flight in an F-15 fighter jet. There's a picture of a horse, because the horse, I fell in love with horses at the age of 2, and actually horses basically saved my life. I talk about in the book, I was this pathetic, uncoordinated kid. I used to trip on my own feet, walk into walls, drop everything. But it was the movement of being on a horse, that rhythmic movement that stimulated my vestibular system and change, my equilibrium, my coordination, my balance, and everything. And even, speaking skills, social skills. I can't recommend enough the importance of folks with children on the autism spectrum, of somehow getting them into horse therapy, all that. There's all kind of studies that document the positive effects of horses for those on the autism spectrum. And I talk all about that in my book. And I actually describe in very explicit details, and parents and therapists will love this, to understand and hear what was it like to experience where my arms and legs aren't even connected. I didn't even know how to make them work. And I describe what that feels like, and then the change that started happening in me from being on the horses and everything, and how that came to totally change how my body functions and have body control over myself. And I think that's a real important thing for parents and therapists, occupational therapists, everybody to hear that, for somebody to verbalize in explicit detail this whole process.
It's really amazing and wonderful to know that you fully explain all of that in the book. But now the two icons that are the first one and the last one, I would guess that those are two of the most important things in your life.
Okay, so there's the icon for the medical symbol of the caduceus, and that's for, of course, for my 30-plus year career as a certified registered nurse anesthetist. To date, I've done over 60,000 cases. I specialize like in anesthesia for neurosurgery, orthopedic joint replacement. I used to be on an organ transplant team, trauma and burns, really big stuff. You know, I've got patients' lives in my hands every day. So it's a high stress job, but it's not so much really, it's not the actual giving anesthesia and doing that. That's the stress to me. The stress is dealing with all the massive sensory overload that I have to endure every day, which is just a normal part of being in the operating room. And, you know, when I listen to all the neurotypicals, because I'm the only person on the spectrum, but I listen to all of them and they're all wiped out, exhausted by the end of the day. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, you ought to try being autistic and being able to endure all of that, you know, between bright lights. I hear bone saws all day, hammering, multiple people talking all at one time, having, you know, multiple monitors going, having to keep track of, you know, it seems like 100 things all at once to keep track of all day long, interacting with people nonstop. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot, and there's often a life at stake while it's happening. So that's got to be extra added pressure. I can't even imagine, Anita. It is a lot. But as you said, you've been successful in doing this on a very high level for 3 decades now. That's an amazing accomplishment, an amazing accomplishment. And then the last icon are the 2 wedding rings, which I think is probably one of the most joyous things in your life, right?
Yes, that symbolizes, yes, my wedding to my beloved soulmate, Abraham. And, you know, we're like a little team, I guess maybe you want to call it. Like, you know, we work together like so well in the sense of, you know, when I'm busy, you know, writing, I'll be there at the kitchen table, which has become my office. And I'll be, you know, going at it on the computer, writing, you know, more chapters or articles or blogs or whatever. And, you know, he's there, he'll be cooking there in the kitchen, or he'll be doing the laundry or doing stuff to keep the house going and keep us going. And his, you know, constant support for me and everything. So yes, all that's a very significant part of my life. And did I leave out any of those little?
No, I think.
You know what they remind me of? Little charms on a charm bracelet.
Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking too. And I think it's a beautiful cover, you know, I mean, because it's all there, and it's, I think it's just a lovely, lovely way of looking at it. So these are just some of the things that you talk about in the book. And for people who haven't seen you on the show before, you didn't get a diagnosis early on. People always talk about early diagnosis, early diagnosis. That was not your story. And how do, you know, in terms of you being successful, do you feel at all like not getting the diagnosis early helped you, or did it hinder you? What are your thoughts on that, Anita?
It made me a stronger person because, okay, I didn't get diagnosed until I was 50, and I only discovered that I'm on the spectrum by chance. I mean, like, okay, so I go the first 50 years of my life, I know I'm different, I don't fit in, I have all these, you know, in my earlier days, all the coordination problems, all these seemingly bizarre problems that nobody else seems to have, all kind of social problems, and it just keeps going on, and I always felt like I was on the outside of life looking in. So it was just constant, nonstop obstacles to overcome, but yet I always persevere, never gave up. But early on, and this is something that book focuses on, it isn't a book like about my life. It's not an autobiography. I use my life events as the backdrop to talk about how I learned the power of the mind and how to use visualization to achieve your goals. Now, I learned that very early on, how powerful your mind is, and everybody has this power within them. If they want to tap into it, they can, and can make significant achievements, okay? There's a big thing about positive thinking. I mean, you know that, everybody knows, you can read all about it and everything, but actually doing it and visualizing things, and I discuss, I mean, right in the forward, I mean, the introduction, and I talk about how I would, when I wanted to do something, I'd watch other people doing it over and over for hours and hours and hours, and it was kind of like downloading it into my brain so that then I could watch that video in my brain over and over and over again. And then I would think about it, watch that video, and then I would envision myself doing the activity from two perspectives. One, as if I was watching myself do it, and the other perspective of me actually doing it. So by the time I actually did it, my brain actually thought that I actually did it already.
Wow.
As I went through my whole life and learning how to do this visualization process, then as I came to be an adult, well, then I learned about, that's how, like, these top elite Olympic athletes, they use this visualization in their training. And it's actually classified as actually even more important than the physical training, is the training of their mind. I mean, these like Olympic skiers and ice skaters, they'll visualize themselves like the skiers going down the mountain at 80 miles an hour. Well, they visualize that in their mind hundreds of times before they actually start skiing down that mountain. So by the time they actually are skiing down the mountain, their body and their mind thinks they've already done it, so they do it so much better. And this is all, you know, documented research, scientific, backed, and everything. There's Dr. Norman Doidge. He's written several books about this visualization and neuroplasticity. Now, you see, people used to think, scientists and researchers even used to think, your brain was a static thing, and however you were born, that's kind of just it. Well, it's not the case. You can reshape the thinking in your brain and like reprogram it. I call it rewiring, and that's actually what they do call it, rewiring, with this ability that your brain has with this neuroplasticity, the ability to change. So throughout this book, yes, I talk about the different aspects of my life, but I keep going back to that visualization and neuroplasticity, and I give my 7 steps how I do this, and I very clearly, very explicitly go over it in this book to teach people, because not only people on the autism spectrum, anybody who wants to make positive changes in their life can use this method. But I'm hoping that people on the autism spectrum especially will start to incorporate this, because you can do so many things with it. You can learn executive functioning skills. You can learn whatever it is that you have a goal or a dream. Start using this visualization process, and you can get there. And that's the whole purpose of this book. Like I said, it's not like it's just some autobiography, because that's not the purpose of it. I want to help others be able to achieve their best life possible. And in the forward, what Dr. Tony Atwood wrote, when I read what he wrote, I felt so overwhelmed. He saw it. He saw he calls it the bridge. This is the bridge of what scientists and research all knows about autism, to bridging over to that thing, to be able to do these things. And he feels that this visualization and everything needs to be incorporated into regular like therapy and education system and everything to do for autistic individuals. So I'm really excited about this book, and I hope it reaches far and wide. And it's for everybody. It's not just for, individuals on the spectrum. It's for parents especially, because they can learn how to do this visualization and help teach their children how to do it. It's for educators, therapists, anybody who wants to make a positive change.
What a wonderful thing. Where can we get the book, right? Because it's available, it came available, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday?
On Monday, April 1st.
Okay. So where can we get it, Anita?
You can get the book on Amazon.com or like Barnes & Noble. I mean, if you go on my website, which is AnitaLesko.com, and you go to where it says books, and if you click on it, that'll take you to Amazon. Of course, I do all my own shopping from Amazon, so that's my first place.
I love that. So, Anita, when did you learn this about visualization, and and how did you, did somebody introduce this to you, or did you find it on your own and then do research on it and realize how powerful it was? How did this come to you?
When I was about 6 years old, and there's a little story in the book, so I don't want to kind of give it away.
Yeah, don't give anything away.
When I learned the power of the mind. And there's a specific incident that enabled me to learn that power. From there, when I started to be as a working student at a stable where I used to work, which I started working there when I was about 12, and I wanted so bad to be able to ride horses and someday learn how to jump them and ride in competition and everything. But my family was very poor, so my parents could not afford riding lessons or buy a horse or anything like that. So the only way it was going to be was I had to get a job as a working student at this big stable near my home. And in return for shoveling out horse stalls and all kind of physical work there, I would get riding lessons and riding time. Well, here's a kid that's so uncoordinated, of course. So I would sit and watch the other riders and the people, even down to things like cleaning a horse stall. I was so uncoordinated. I'm thinking, how am I going to pick up a wheelbarrow loaded with the contents of that stall and wheel it down the aisle up into the ramp and then dump the contents into the dumpster? So I would study how the other people, the workers, did it, and I would watch over and over. And I started realizing that when I did this process, then when I would actually do it, it was starting to happen. And the same thing with riding. Now, when I used to start to take riding lessons, and even into my adulthood, because I can remember, I guess I was in my 30s, and there was this riding instructor. He was a really good riding instructor, except he was kind of, how should I say, a little arrogant or whatever. But he would tell me, I'm up on a horse, so I'm on a moving object. And so then, if people know what trotting or cantering is, so he's hollering out, to push my right heel down and push my left shoulder back, and my right hand or thumb needs to be doing this. So all these commands that I'm like, I could not follow or do what he would actually ask at the time. It would take me a week of go home. I would have to write it down, all of these things, what I was supposed to do, and think about it for the week, visualize it over and over. Then the following week, I would be able to reproduce those things on the horse. Of course, this guy used to scream at me. He said, "You're less than an idiot. Can't you just do it?" And I'm like, "No." And then I can't do it. And he would say, "Why?" And I said, "I don't know. All I know is I can do it next week." And he would say, "I never saw anything like this in my life. This is crazy." And I said, "Well, that's all I can tell you." And then the following week, I would be able to produce the movement or whatever. But that's how my brain works. And so I would talk about this, in the book in very explicit detail. I'm sure, it's probably boring at some point.
Your writing is never boring, Anita. Never.
Well, because I think I wanted people to understand what's actually happening in my body and how these things were able to come about. So I felt that I think, parents are going to enjoy to read it. I've heard over and over parents say, "I just wish I can have the opportunity to understand my child's mind. What are they thinking? What are they feeling?" Well, now they're going to get that opportunity for sure to see what it's like living in an autistic body. So everything that I did then throughout my life, I realized if I wanted to really do it, I have to use this visualization process, even in my anesthesia training, even in photography when I want to take pictures of jets. Every single thing, I use the visualization to get me there to my goal. And other people can do these things too. Like I said, I in extreme detail, map out my 7-step process of how to do this.
I love this. Now, did you teach this to your husband?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
And did he have any idea about it before you taught it to him? Had he ever heard of visualization or not at all?
No, never, never anything. When we first met, I mean, all he knew how to do, he can boil water to make coffee. Okay. I taught him how to cook. I mean, now he can cook just like me, which I can cook like Emeril Lagasse. And there again, now here's a little story. I had gotten thrown off my horse back in 2009, so I spent 3 months laid up with a whole lot of broken bones. Okay. And my mom had brought a little portable TV into my room, and I watched the Food Network. I knew how to cook prior to this, okay, but for 3 months, 10 hours a day, I'm watching the Food Network and watching Emeril Lagasse and all the top chefs and everything. So I learned a lot of techniques. So I end up teaching all this to Abraham and how to visualize how to do it over and over. And now he cooks just like I do.
And do you say the BAM when you spice things? Do you just say BAM like Emeril?
Well, sure. You got to do BAM. Pick it up a notch.
On one of the BAMs, your computer, I think we're just seeing the top of your head. I don't know if you can tilt it down a little bit. But that's amazing. Well, so it's changed everybody's life then around you. And Anita, you move in some pretty impressive circles. I mean, Dr. Temple Grandin is a friend of yours. You wrote a book with her about the stories that I tell my friends, which is an amazing book, one of my favorite books. And so when you're talking about this with other people who are on the spectrum, do you find that it's something that is brand new to them that they never knew about before and you're helping to change their lives?
Yes, nobody that I've met in the autism community has ever, I don't even know if nobody has said they've never heard of it necessarily, but nobody's ever said that they have heard of it really, and nobody certainly has been doing it. I used to be involved in ice dancing, and that I was around a lot of Olympic level ice skaters a lot, and also with the horses. Now, one of the things I used to find fascinating when I used to go to the United States equestrian team to their Olympic training center, because I lived about 1 hour away. This was back up in New Jersey. And they would have Olympic selection trials. So I would see the best riders in the United States there. And I used to see them before it was time for them to do their ride. They would go off in some far corner all by themselves, and I'd see them just facing into a corner with their eyes shut, but they were kind of going over with all their motions with their body as if they were riding the horse through their, through the competition thing. And I realized, wow, they're doing it too. Okay, so then I'm on the right track of what I'm doing,
Yeah.
But all Olympic people and top elite sports athletes use this visualization thing. So, and research documents that it really works. So, like I said, I've been doing it my whole life, and I've accomplished many, many things. So, hopefully other people will want to try it.
Well, you are an autism success story, and it makes great sense to me. We do a segment on the show that we call a mindfulness moment, and we talk about different ways, because, when you talk about being mindful or doing visualization or creative visualization, I'm sure you get this all the time, Anita, talking about this, but I certainly get people who say, yeah, I'm not good at that. I don't know how to meditate. I don't know how to do, visualization. And so on the show, we try to do just a little thing every week where we talk about different ways that people can do it, because doesn't have to be just one way. And I was realizing as you were talking that this whole idea of visualizing yourself doing it as if you're watching yourself and then doing it the other way as if you're in your body, that's something I've been missing when I do things. So that resonated with me like a chord being struck, Anita. That was like, oh, of course, that's such a powerful tool. But do you find that people, have people say to you a lot, oh, I don't meditate, I'm not good at that, I don't know how to do that. Or I don't know how to hold a picture in my head. I hear people say that.
Yes, that's definitely, yes, I've heard that. And that's why and in fact, there's a chapter in the book, How to Help Decrease Anxiety Through Using This Visualization Method. And I go again in the very explicit detail in a step-by-step methodical process. And I give like different little exercises to, to visualize this. And then I go step by step, what to visualize. And how you start this out, where you learn how to tune everything out, because it gives your brain, like if you're trying to decrease anxiety, your brain has to be able to calm down and shut out everything. As a person on the spectrum who I can get very anxious, at various different things. And even if I'm not anxious, I'll find something to be anxious about. And then I'd say to myself, okay, I've got to do my little method. And then I stand there, and then you learn to do it anywhere, even in a crowded environment, like at an airport or something like that. But you initially started out just in your home in total peace and quiet. And there can't be any distractions, no cell phones binging, dinging, no TVs on, no radios, no music on, nothing. Total quiet. That's how you learn to just focus initially, like on your breathing. And then you start the thought process of what to think about, and only focusing on the specific thing that it is that you're going to think about. And then you can start to learn it. And then once you learn how to do it, then it's very easy to start to do it whenever you need to, like to decrease anxiety, or if you're going to use it to visualize something, a goal, to do or something. But pretty much anybody can learn to do this. It does take practice. It isn't going to happen the first time you do it, but you can't give up. And that's the whole thing. You have to be willing to put the time in to practice it, until you can. It might take you 2 weeks, it might take you 2 months, but don't give up, because it doesn't happen on the very first try. You keep going over that step-by-step process, and then you'll be able to do it.
And we're almost out of time, Anita, but do you and your husband ever meditate together and visualize together?
Actually, yes, we do. We love to be where there's snow, and we have this scene where we like to visualize being by a fieldstone fireplace with a big picture window, watching the snow coming down in the early evening, with deer outside by a pond.
I love it.
That's our favorite scene to visualize.
It sounds very Dr. Zhivago, and I know that's a big movie that you love. That's wonderful. I know your mom loved that movie. Anita, I just think you're amazing, and I love you. And this book, I think, is going to be a ginormous book and help a whole lot of people. We really want to encourage everybody to get the book. And leave reviews for it on Amazon. It's available now. Is there any place else you want them to leave reviews?
I know, Amazon. I guess like Barnes and Noble and other book sites like that have review things.
I owe you a review. I'm remiss. I owe you a review. But you know that I love you, and I love everything that you do. So, and you're going to be speaking tonight. You're signing books, and tomorrow you're going to be speaking. Tell them where you're going to be tonight and tomorrow again.
Okay, tonight I'm going to be at the Barnes & Noble in Rochester Hills, Michigan. And then tomorrow I'm at the Metro Parent Magazine Autism event at the Marriott Troy, which starts at 8 a.m. tomorrow. My speaking time is at 2:45, I believe it is, in the afternoon.
Okay, fabulous. Not to be missed. Please give your husband a big hug from us, and I hope you guys have a wonderful time in Detroit and that you get to that snowy place with a fireplace soon.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, thank you. I love you too, Shannon.
Thank you so much, Anita. Sending you big, warm hugs, and hopefully I'm going to get to see you sometime soon. You take care,
Yes,
okay?
indeed. Thank you. You too. Okay,
Bye-bye. We are just about out of time. I think we're a minute over here. I just want to say we're back again tomorrow. Tomorrow is Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Our very special guest, we've got Rena Vanzo, who's going to talk with us from Lineagen about why you might want to consider doing genetic testing and what the reasons for it are, what the benefits are. And then we have the fabulous up-and-coming YouTube star, Kenny Valdivia, is going to be with us to talk about why that's super important to him. You're going to love him. He's super fabulous, awesome. And don't forget, this weekend, if you're in town, if you're by Disneyland, you've got to come to Fullerton to go to the Mardi Gras for Autism. We will be there. We've got great prizes, and we're very excited about that. So make sure that you're at Fullerton Cares this Saturday. It's from 11 to 4, the Mardi Gras for Autism. Be there or be square. We're going to be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.